Hey, what's up, guys? We are back here with another episode of here at the Big Break Podcast. We are breaking down Northwestern and Illinois' 2023 season outlook, and we are also going to be talking a little bit about the new schedules that were released. Um, Drew, you're wearing the team, so we're going to go there. Ethan's wearing the other one. We're going to start here with the Northwestern Wildcats. Drew, what does the 2023 Wildcats team look like this year? Who do they got coming in? Who did they lose? On both sides of the ball, what's their outlook going to be for Patty Fitz this year? Mm, ooh, okay. S- Okay. Ooh, and he's keeping his job. Mm, Absolutely. Who's going to be leading the Wildcats this year? Mm, absolutely. Absolutely. Take the job. Absolutely. Corey, I know you had a few questions here about the Northwestern Wildcat team, for Drew. What were some of those questions you had going into this 2023 season? Alrighty. Drew, I do have a question here for you. I was reading an article it was dated a few months ago where Patty Fitz was quoted saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, we're gonna do our job with bringing in the high school kids. That's how we're gonna build our program, and we're gonna do it through recruiting, and we're not looking through the transfer portal. Um, in this new day and age of college football, where now NIL is also playing a big deal, um, obviously the transfer portal, you can go out and get key, talent to help, sustain or build, help build that program as, we've seen Luke Fickell do in Wisconsin, bringing in a lot of transfers, or as I like to now call him instead of Coach Prime, I call him Transfer Prime now, because we see what he's doing out there in Colorado, just, sending players to the portal and taking them in from it. Do you think maybe in the upcoming years, Pat Fitz may have to adjust his philosophy there and maybe make it a healthy mix of recruiting and transfer portal to sustain that Wildcat program? Right. Absolutely. Corey, did you have anything left regarding Northwestern here? Ooh, is he on the hot seat? Great question, Corey. Oh, hey, you're tripling it or quadrupling your last season's total, right? Uh, let's soil. Um, Speaking now, we're getting into those win losses. Let's break it down. They start off the season with Rutgers, then host UTEP. They go to Duke. Then they get three straight home games: Minnesota, Penn State, and then Howard, which is our last non-conference game. And then they start the remaining of their Big Ten schedule, which will be at Nebraska, home versus Maryland and Iowa, at Wisconsin, home against Purdue, and then their rivalry game at Illinois. Drew, you covered them. You dove deep. What does their win loss total look like this year? Three and nine. All right. Ethan, who do you got? What do you got Northwestern going here this year? All right. So 3-9 as well. All right. Corey, are you rocking 3-9 for this Northwestern team? 2-10. All right. It's poopy. Alrighty. Alrighty. I have them going. I have them going 3-9 like Drew does as well. I'm going 3-9. With Ethan and Drew. I think that's Northwestern's ceiling here right now. Um, Ethan, we covered the one team here in Illinois. You're wearing the other one, the Fighting Illini. Juice Williams. Uh, let's take us off on the Fighting Illini down there in Champaign. Like it. Yeah. Okay. Now, by blue chip, just give the people at home what you mean by that. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. It sounds like they're gonna be a y- a young, not a young, but a older underclassmen team this year, right? Like a lot of like juniors, junior class. Yeah. Okay. Gone. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, it was actually a surprise last year to see Illinois back to, winning football games. They were down for so long that it was, I mean, I could go back to when we were, younger kids, like in our teens, and just knowing that Illinois was not a pushover game. They were going to play you tough every week. They took Ohio State to overtime the year they won the national title in 2012. They beat Ohio, you know what I mean? Like they beat Ohio State in the shoe, and all this stuff. And, they were beating not just Ohio State. They were beating Wisconsin. They were beating Penn State. They were beating Michigan. They were competing. And it's finally good to see, them back not necessarily consistently doing that, but getting back to those ways where now they're competing again. Because they played, as we all know, they played Michigan really tough last year, like really tough. Definitely, Corey. I know you had some questions here about or about Illinois, some great ones. So I wanted to let you get those in first here. Hold that last question though, because we'll get to that. one of my main questions, Ethan, for you was um, this Illinois team. They lost a lot of heartbreakers last year, which was a lot of their games, a lot of close ones. Can Brett Bielema get this team and these young guys to a competitive stamina, and can they learn to win those close games? Because as we know, that's what separates your you're going to a Big Ten championship game and not, right? Is winning those close three, less than a touchdown spread games. So, do you think he could get them to that point this year? Right. I like that. I like that. So it's more of a like coaches always say. I know Urban said it. Nick Saban's always said it. It's always hard to keep your team engaged after winning a national championship, right? And that going into that next season, keeping them engaged, that thirst to win, especially when you have a lot of guys returning. Um, so I like that. I like that. I like that you said that it's going to be more mental this year for Illinois than probably anything of keeping these young guys engaged. If their seasons, if they lose a game, hey, we lost one, we got to stay engaged here because we can win these next four, right? Yep. Absolutely. Well, let's get to it because Corey asked it. Can Illinois be a 10-win team with this schedule? They open the season home against Toledo. They travel to Kansas. Then they get Penn State at home. Home against Florida Atlantic. They travel to Purdue. They get Northwestern at home. Then they go at Maryland, home against Wisconsin, at Minnesota, home against Indiana, at Iowa, and home against Northwestern. This is kind of crazy when you look at their schedule. They only have a 2 week period or a 2 week back to back week period, September 16th and September 23rd when they have back to back home games. Other than that, they are flopping every single week. They're home and then away, home then away. That's a lot of traveling, a lot of back and forth for a team. So Ethan, we'll start with you. Since you covered them, looking at their schedule, can they be a 10-win team? Kansas. Yeah. Right. Okay. 9-3. All right. Can find themselves in Indianapolis. Drew, um, your Illinois Fighting Illini record for this 2023 season? Seven and five. All right. Corey, you asked the question. Are they a 10-win team? Absolutely. I have them going 8-4. Just because when I look at their schedule, I think Penn State's going to be that game. Nebraska with their new offense that Matt Rule's going to bring. With all the questions that Illinois has on defense, that's a coin flip. Same thing with Wisconsin. And then I look at Iowa. Iowa always plays really good defense. The question is, can they score points? The question to me though is as we saw last year, was can Illinois score points? So I feel like that's going to be the battle there, which that also could be a coin flip. So I'm actually going to have them go 8-4 this year, but I do think that they could be that 9-3 team. Oh, oh, I think they're 11-win team last year with this schedule. If they had this schedule last year, I think they were an 11-win team, and I think their only loss would have been to Penn State. Absolutely. Oh yeah. Yes. Oh yeah. Well, we had big news released in the past couple weeks. I know we missed last week to talk about it, but the Big Ten released their 2024 and 2025 kind of like conference schedules. Not necessarily the dates that they're being played, but who's going to be playing who. Um, let's just have a conversation here about it, guys. Your initial thoughts about it. Um, I know my initial thought was just looking at it, there was a couple teams who definitely got screwed going into the 2024 season. Yep. I do agree with that to an extent where I do think two losses you're still in if you're if you played a gauntlet of a schedule. Before I go on though, Drew or Ethan, your initial thoughts here on what was released? Any surprises to you? Right. Absolutely. Drew, your initial thoughts here? Yeah. I mean, there are definitely a lot of good matchups. I think the Big Ten tried to do their best here of evening it out. And when, like, as we saw when we were going through, like, our thing of who's going to be your three permanent rivals, who's going to be your two that you play every once in a while type thing, when we were going through that, I know ourselves, it always seemed like one team or a couple teams were always getting that gauntlet of a schedule, and how do you balance that? I think they try to do their best here. Like I mean, I just think that Michigan having to play Michigan State, Ohio State, USC, and UCLA in back-to-back years, that's a little rough for them, especially when they do have a home and home versus Texas, and especially with the potential losses in of their personnel that they're going to have, their turnover after this 2023 season. Um, I think and that's what I mean, and that's kind of what I mean by like I feel like they got screwed in that sense. When you really look about what turnover they're potentially going to have versus what their future schedule is going to look like. Um, and then another surprise that came to me was that Michigan is Ohio State's only guaranteed opponent out of the Big Ten every year. That's their only protected matchup. I personally thought that Penn State would be in that conversation to keep that going, but it seems like the Big Ten also didn't feel that way. Um, was that a smart decision on their part, guys, to keep that, to make sure that that was Ohio State's only protected game? That's a very interesting question because I know what a lot of the fan base would say would be yes, like Penn State, would be it. But honestly, like every fiber in my body is our rival is only Michigan, and that's our only rival. Penn State's obviously played us close every year, and it's always a good game, which is why I was surprised that they left that off, just off the sheer, ratings and the quality of a game that you've gotten. I mean, how many times have we seen it come down to a blocked field goal, a sack, stop on fourth down, or something within that game? But so that's why it was surprising to me. Um, was that they left Penn State? Oh, go ahead. Yeah. It feels like it, but I mean, when you ask it, I mean, it's there's only one rival to us in Columbus, and that's up, that's the team up north. Corey, I know you were laughing during that part. I mean, you guys have like that kind of same feeling though, don't you guys up there in Ann Arbor about like, yeah, Michigan State's a rival, but who is your rival? You know? Yes. Right. 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 I would definitely put USC Michigan historically over as a like a historic rival. I would put rank that above Ohio State Penn State in my opinion. I think Michigan and USC have put on way better classics, if you will, than Ohio State Penn State have. Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. Well, Corey, real quick though, speaking about that, if I'm not mistaken, the 2024 or 2025 season, correct, is when the ACC deal is up and those teams can start moving. Is that correct? So you could be right. That's maybe why they only did these 2 years, expecting to get some of those teams from conferences when those TV deals are up. Right. Now, Corey, you kind of touched on it a little bit in one of my questions to Drew and Ethan. We're going to be, could this work in Penn State's favor, not having a locked opponent? Could this work in their favor where some years they may not have to play Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, and they maybe only have to play USC, and the rest they're playing like Rutgers, Illinois, Purdue, Indiana, Northwestern, Maryland. I mean, could that benefit them with not having a locked opponent? More like Corey said, it could possibly hurt them because on some of those years they may have to run the gauntlet where they play Ohio State, Michigan, USC, UCLA, Wisconsin, Nebraska. You know what I'm saying? They could draw all those teams in one season without having that locked opponent. Mm, right. Yeah. Well, I guess what I was saying though is like you're not wrong. That could happen to Ohio State where they draw the gauntlet, with only having Michigan as a protected rival. But like, I guess what I'm saying is knowing Ohio State plays Michigan every year, with Penn State not having that, oh, you're guaranteed to play Ohio State or you're guaranteed to play Wisconsin every year. That game now could be replaced with, instead of having two tough games, they could have Maryland instead of Ohio State or Wisconsin, I guess is what I'm saying. So like, I guess is it really a good thing for them to not have it, or is it a bad thing for them not to have that? Right. Drew, your thought? Yeah. And they get Ohio State in 2024. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. So it appears that if I'm reading this right, so it appears that for Penn State, their two play opponents are Michigan State and Rutgers, and then USC has this weird like arrow next to it, which I'm not sure if that means it's a home and home, so they may only play them um once every so often, or if it's just a misprint and it was supposed to be an asterisk, so where they do like the home and home, then they won't play each other 1 year. CBS. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah. It just looked on my screen that the one next to the symbol next to the USC was an arrow, not like a true asterisk. That's okay. Right. Right. Absolutely. Team's next championship. Right. Absolutely. You're not wrong. Um, when I'm looking, I guess when I'm looking at it is I think it's going to be a curse and a blessing for Penn State not to have that locked game. Because on the flip side, like you guys are saying, yes, if they had on those down years, they lose one game, they're in the playoff, right? 12 teams, they're probably in. However, though, my thing is on those down years, if you come across a hungry Maryland team, they beat you. You come across that middle of the pack Illinois team, they beat you. They come across that Northwestern Patty Fitz team that has nothing but seniors on it that goes 8-4, makes it to a Big Ten championship like they did and plays tough. They could beat you, right? So I guess my thing is like, yes, it's a blessing and a curse because when you draw those easy schedules, if you catch those teams on those years, you lose those 3 games, you're not in the playoff. But if you had Ohio State, Michigan, USC, UCLA on your schedule, as maybe a couple of those teams are your protected teams, and you lose 2 out of those 4, and those are your only 2 losses, you're probably in, right? Over if you maybe even lose 2 losses to your 2 losses are to Northwestern and Maryland, you may not be in because they're 8-4, 7-5 teams. Well, I mean, that's another thing to be said as well. Give it for another day. Yeah. Oh, yes. Right. Right. I could see UCLA. Right. 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 That's what I'm saying. Like it could hurt Penn State in that aspect where they don't have a guaranteed team like a USC, Ohio State, or Michigan that could say, "Ooh, you may have lost that game against the number 2 team in the country by a field goal, and you may not be the ninth best team, but you're probably the 10th, 11th, or 12th." And I think that's what you're saying, Core, right? They're in. Right. No, right, but what I'm saying though is like if Penn State had Michigan, let's just say Penn State and Michigan or Penn State and USC were their protected games, right? Let's just say that was a protected game, right? With having that game on their schedule every single year, if Penn State loses that game, it's not as big of a deal because typically USC is going to be ranked in the top 10. So you lose to a top 10 opponent, you're probably still maybe in if that's your first or second loss of the year, right? But I guess what I was saying though is to your point, Core, is if they don't have that, right, that one loss to a top 10 team or, a ranked team, that potentially hurts them with getting into the top 12 of the playoff, right? No, right. Well, right. Absolutely. For sure. Ethan, you had something there. Go ahead. And that's But when you're looking at that, but like, and that's why I guess that's what my ultimate question is. Though, is when you're looking at that, does that hurt Penn State not having a locked great opponent in the Big Ten, like a top tier opponent in the Big Ten? Does that hurt them when down the line? And again, obviously, it's who they draw, whatever. But could that potentially does that benefit or potentially hurt them when you're looking, like you said, it comes down to March. We're looking at resumes. Well, naturally. But I'm just saying, but what I'm saying, but I guess what I'm saying is if you look at, let's just say 10-2 Penn State, who didn't play a top team in their conference, and then you look at a team like Corey said, Texas, who's 10-2, but played Georgia, Alabama, LSU, you would say probably Texas is in over Penn State, correct? Well, right, but my point is though but the point is they have a protected opponent. So, well, I mean, you could say the same thing of why Michigan State is protected against Michigan. Then, like, it doesn't matter for that. You can still play them every year. Why have them as a protected opponent when when they've been bad the past, I don't know, 9 years? Well, right. If Cincinnati would have joined the Big Ten instead of the Big 12, you would have Ohio State, Cincinnati, right? Yes. Drew's laughing. What's going on up there, Drew? Uh oh. Uh oh. Uh-oh, Drew got his Phil. Yeah, how'd you get the Phil early? Oh, number one customer up there for Phil Steele. Taking, yeah, yes, sir. Drops next Friday. Hey, if you're there, Ethan, pick one up for me. Me too. That's what I'm saying. I think it's a shame. Every a stupid turtle that's wooden. So, okay, question. Outside of probably the obvious choice of being Ohio State and that conversation, who would you want as Penn State's permanent opponent in the Big Ten? Okay, Maryland consensus, proximity. Def- my outside if I take geography out of it, like the geographic locations, I'd make one change for it. I would take Iowa away from Nebraska, and I'd put Penn State right there. I think that would be potentially could be one of the great football games in the Big Ten. Ethan, you're looking at me crazy. Listen, historically, both of these programs are historically just powerhouses, right? You have the old Nebraska days, the old Joe Pa Penn State days where they were winning and everything. If when you're going back to that, I think you could ignite an old style football game here and bring the old school to the new school with Matt Rule at this historically great program. You have James Franklin took over historically great program, and I think they could ignite a great and create a what potential great rivalry in college football. Mm. I don't know what you would call it. I don't know what you would call it. Yeah. Oh, you would. I don't know what the trophy could be called, but I have a couple ideas what it would look like. You either have a dog with a corn of husk in his mouth, or not a dog, but a Nittany lion with a corn husker in his mouth, like just a piece of corn, or you put the corn husk around the lion. That would their trophy, like half and half of each stadium, and then both mascots just sock 'em bop 'em style. I like it. Okay. Ooh. Or you could call it Frosty. Just call it the Frosty trophy. Core, your thoughts on that? I think we get four. I think we get 4 teams after 2025. We're gonna take we're gonna take Oregon, Washington. We're gonna take Penn or Pittsburgh out of the ACC, and then we're gonna take either West Virginia or Virginia Tech. Or or I heard Washington doesn't. Yeah, well that, and I heard Washington may not. The Big Ten may not accept Washington, and they may bring Stanford because Stanford's part of the AAU. Same thing with Virginia Tech, Pitt, North Carolina, like a lot of these schools, and that's huge for the Big Ten. They want AAU schools. There's Well, so as remember when we were talking about it, how I was saying how that NBC TV deal could bring Notre Dame to the Big Ten. Apparently, that's what NBC is now pushing on to Notre Dame. Join the Big Ten. This isn't going to go away. The Notre Dame doesn't, but they may be like I was saying, they may be forced to join a conference with all these TV deals. So, oh, it'd be great. Anything else, guys, before on the schedules before we let everybody have a great rest of their Father's Day here? All right, everybody, like and subscribe. Like the video, it helps us with the algorithms. Subscribe to the channel, so once we get to that 100, we'll have our giveaway. Everybody have a wonderful Father's Day, and thanks for listening to us. Give you the Illinois 2023 and Northwestern 2023 outlook. Have a great rest of your day, guys.